will will be shared afterwards with you. Now it's my privilege to introduce Rebecca Boswell. As a growth mindset transformation coach, Rebecca facilitates outcomes through insights so you can actualize your vision with confidence and courage. I missed last event, but I had the privilege of watching it. And I was totally inspired by the growth mindset that Rebecca will bring forward more about today. She calls herself a lifelong learner. And if you, in her slide, you will see that she has an MA, which is a Master of Arts in Cultural Anthropology from Boston University, and she graduated with honors. She has an MBA after her name, which means Management of Organizational Behavior from the State University of New York in Albany. She has a PCC, which stands for Professional Coaching Certification through Columbia University Executive Leadership Coaching Certification Center. And she has a CHHS, which is through the International Coaching Federation, and it's the certification for holistic health counseling. I don't know about you, but seeing all these things makes me totally inspired to hear what she has to say. She's presented to a variety of institutions in many fields, business, communication, and anthropology. And apparently she's worked in sales and marketing and has run her own coaching business and practice for the last 14 plus years, which is interestingly not easy to do. So I'm so grateful that we have an opportunity to hear her speak today and to participate in her facilitated event. And so take it away, please, Rebecca.
Well, thank you. Wow, that introduction is pretty meaty. I want to meet her. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah, so hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for welcoming me. Quick show of hands. Who was present at the October talk? Was any? I do think I see some familiar faces. Okay, awesome. Well, great to see you again. And for those who are here for the first time, we are going to still introduce many of the same things. But hopefully for those of you who've already been here before, you'll just get to practice and explore on a deeper level wherever you are today. So hopefully there's something here for everyone. I am living in Austin, Texas. I'm originally from upstate New York, so I've traveled a lot, gotten around, but that's where I am today. I've been married, it'll be 22 years in September, and I have a daughter who's going to be a senior next year and a son who's going to be a freshman in high school, both high school. So growth mindset is something that I am definitely engaging in my home with the people here, as well as a coach and in my community. So hopefully you'll find value here as well. I am going to share my screen, which means I will not be seeing your beautiful faces. But if you have something that you want to share or comment, please put it in the chat, and then Donna will let us know what you are asking or what you've shared. So feel free as we progress. This is really for you, and we want it to be of value. Okay, so now I go to share screen. And we'll say goodbye to that. And we'll hide this. And we'll move this out of the way. Okay. So, growth mindset. So this is, let's see where we're starting today. All right. So to start, when we are talking about a growth mindset, I want to start by just saying, instead of talking about this thing that's just sort of floating in space, I want to start with this concept of a continuum. So on this continuum, we have two sides. And on the one side, we have the growth mindset, which is the focus of what we're talking about today. But on the other side, we have the fixed mindset. And it's kind of important to know that they both exist as two sides of the coin, mostly because as much as we'd like to perhaps all live on the growth mindset side all the time, the reality is that we're continuously moving back and forth on the continuum. And with more awareness, the goal is, or your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to see how through awareness and choice and practice, we can start moving further down that spectrum towards being on that growth mindset side more of the time. So then let's start with the fixed side, okay? Because unfortunately, for some of us, the fixed side can almost be more of the default setting, either because of how we were raised or, conditioning of thoughts and beliefs, or just even maybe a personal disposition. So the fixed mindset is where we come at the world with a sense that who we are is what we are, period. It is what it is. I am as I am, and that's it. So the idea is that our intelligence, our abilities, our talent, our skills, whatever makes us who we are and what we're capable of is fixed from the beginning, and we have maybe a small little window that we can play around with, but that's it. So if you're going to be out in the wild, recognizing what does that sound like, right? You might hear language, whether internally or from people around you. I can't, I'm not good at this. If that's not my nature, that's just not who I am. Oh, I've never been like that. I could never be like that, right? This idea that this is it. Problem is, if that's our belief, then even if there is greater possibility, we're never going to be able to see what that is because we've already decided that it's not possible. The other thing about the fixed mindset is things become very small, right? The playground that we are living in is very limited because anything that falls outside of the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and about what's possible is not entertainable for us. So if there's challenge, if we don't think that we would be good at something, if we're worried that we might fail or look silly or embarrass ourselves, well, then we're limiting what's possible in terms of personal and professional success, and ultimately even just the quality of our life experience and ultimately fulfillment. So let's look at the growth side, which is, of course, where we're going to play today. So growth mindset leaves space for possibility. It's not always going to be easy, and it can be possible. So when we have a growth mindset, or when we're leaning on that side, we're allowing space and possibility for our intelligence, our traits and abilities to be improved or changed over time. Okay. But it means that we are practicing. It means that we are putting in effort and allowing that effort to bear fruit and have results. It also means, and we'll talk about this again later, it also means, though, that we're willing to shift gears if something's not working. So where does this come from? Where does this growth mindset come from, or how did we start looking at it? Well, actually, it wasn't until the 1990s that psychologist Carol Dweck, she is the one who sort of brought this to the forefront. And now, luckily, we're seeing more and more of her research and these principles being brought not only into the education space, where she initially was celebrated quite a bit, but now also in the leadership space, in corporate spaces where we're trying to know better, do better. So let's keep going. Okay, so how can we notice growth mindset in the world around us? Well, who do you know? Who do you know that given a situation, might be looking at the different options that are available. Who do you know that instead of seeing a challenge and then shutting down, starts to get curious, starts to wonder and say, okay, well, so if this is what's showing up, then how can we adapt? How can we be flexible? Are they demonstrating resilience, meaning that even if they're getting knocked down, that they get back up again and they try again, either the same way or eventually maybe trying new ideas, new strategies, different approaches. When we see somebody demonstrating a growth mindset in the world, challenge becomes an opportunity as opposed to a threat, right? So if we're practicing a fixed mindset, a challenge might come up and all of a sudden we go into fight or flight and it's threatening because it could mean failure, right? However, with a growth mindset, we're looking at, oh, wow, what are all the things that we can learn here? How can we grow? What can we dig into? So I was introduced as a lifelong learner. I always joke that I like to collect expensive pieces of paper. But part of that is, always looking at like where the edge is and always being, interested to know, oh, okay, well, if I've done that, what else can I do? And, what else can I bring into the repertoire? And that makes life more of a journey. So instead of focusing on just the destination, right, sort of like living life from a pass fail mindset, you're looking at as a journey and looking at, what are the experiences that I've had along the way? How has each point of my journey, how has that contributed to who I am today and who I can be tomorrow? Growth mindset is about growth through effort over time. So it means valuing perseverance. It means, you know, being willing to, even when it starts to get uncomfortable, to, get that elbow grease going and valuing that there's importance to that instead of just giving up. Now, as part of all of this, compassion for self and others is going to be key. So I have JFA there. That stands for judgment-free awareness. And of course, hopefully we can find this in everything we do, but especially here too. Because when we see that maybe we're exercising a fixed mindset, or we see somebody else is exercising a fixed mindset, then we have the awareness. And can it be judgment free? That's the compassion part of recognizing where each of us are on our journey, and then also contributing to each other as we are all involved in our own different processes and journeys, and maybe at different paces. And maybe, some people haven't started that journey yet, and that can be okay, right? So, feedback and collaboration. This is another thing. If you have a manager or you have a coworker or you have someone in your life that gets really threatened by input or questions, right? They're coming from a fixed place, right? They don't want to open the door to anything new because of whatever fears that provokes. Maybe they're worried they won't have an answer, or they won't know how to respond, or they maybe are worried it will be outside of their experience, right? But with a growth mindset, we're actually looking for collaboration. We're looking for feedback and input and looking to see, hey, maybe I don't recognize something that's going to work here, but what do you know about this? What can you share? What do you see? Because the more that we're able to share and have that interchange of information, the more that I can maybe see a different way forward, right? So instead of being threatened and seeing feedback as the potential for criticism, being willing to see what else you can incorporate on your path. So when you are in a situation, and I'm sure, I can't see hands, otherwise I would say show of hands, but, I'm sure that you've been in a situation at least once, being human, where you have found that somebody else has tried to be successful at your expense, right? And that comes from a fixed mindset. That comes from the perspective of there's not enough success to go around. And the only way that I can excel is if I push you down. Okay. The beauty of a growth mindset is that we can shift that to say, the more that I can contribute to you and you excel, the more you contribute to me and I excel, the more that we can actually both lift each other up together. And we together can actually excel even more than we could have on our own. And so when you see agency, that's choice and empowerment amongst people, whether it's in a family, community organization, or in a business structure, then you can see that they are functioning more from a growth mindset than a fixed one. So, some popular figures that you would recognize, they exemplify in different ways this growth mindset that we're talking about. So, of course, Thomas Edison is my favorite example. My kids always roll their eyes, when I bring him up, right? But I love that quote, right? He did not fail 10,000 times while trying to create the light bulb. Instead, he just found 10,000 ways that didn't work, right? But knowing what didn't work actually ultimately led him to the solution and to being such a highly respected inventor in our history. So he kept going, right? He had effort over time, also the flexibility and willingness to look at what else could be possible when something wasn't working. J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter franchise, right? She kept going despite how many times she was told no. She was told, no, we're not going to publish that. No, it's not a good story. Nobody's going to like that. Nobody's going to want to read that. And yet, look what ended up getting created, because she kept on writing and she kept on bringing it to different outlets that could pick it up. Michael Jordan, I love this one. He didn't make his high school basketball team. So can you imagine if Michael Jordan had had a fixed mindset and listened to his coach who said he wasn't tall enough, wasn't good enough, and didn't select him? If he had been like, oh, well, that stinks, so I guess basketball isn't for me, we would have had a very different experience in the basketball community, while he was in the spotlight. So, he ended up playing all kinds of sports at a very high level. He's known for what he's done in basketball. He has all kinds of merchandise that's been out because of how, inspiring he has been as a figure. And all because he was told, you're not good enough. And then instead of taking that to heart every day, he went to school before school started and would take 100 free throws before going to class, right? And then always, had the mantra, I'm going to be the first one there, I'm going to be the last one to leave, right? Consistent effort over time while also making adjustments so that he could be successful. Oprah Winfrey being told, she wasn't the right size, she wasn't the right color, she wasn't the right gender, she didn't have the right voice, all the things, and look what she has created. So many different times along her path where she was told no and she could have believed it. But instead, she said, yes, and what if I just haven't gotten it yet? And kept going. Stephen Hawking, a brilliant mind with a body that really didn't work well, right? And yet, he didn't focus on what he couldn't do. He focused on what he could do and ended up contributing so much to our scientific community, right? So these are amazing people who've done amazing things. And it's what they have done is no different than what we have the opportunity to do every day, which is to take a no and see how it can become a yes. Take a point of no possibility and see what else is possible. So quick quiz, here are a couple statements. So we're going to look at them, and I want you to just kind of check in with yourself to see, where do you agree or disagree? So intelligence is a basic part of who we are and can't really be changed. 2, even if you learn new things, how intelligent you are won't really change. 3, you can always change your intelligence level no matter how intelligent you are. And 4, substantial change to intelligence is always possible. So I want you to check with yourself of which ones resonated or which ones felt most applicable to you. And you might notice, oh, that's the one that I want to choose, although I recognize maybe it's not 100% accurate for me yet. That's also good for you to notice. Okay, so the first two, those are representative of a fixed mindset, and the second two of a growth. So what about when we talk about like traits or characteristics? So the first one, you are who you are, and that's not really going to change. You can always change substantially, no matter how you are today. Just because you do something differently doesn't mean you can create substantial change, and the kind of person you are can be changed. So you're probably starting to recognize a pattern here. Okay, so 1 and 3 are fixed. Oh, no, sorry. Yes, 1 and 3 are fixed. And then 2 and 4 are growth. So that's going to take us to our first shared experience where you guys are going to be able to go into breakouts with partners. And so for this first experience, what I'd really like you to do is, given everything that we've talked about so far and that little quick quiz with those statements, I want you to check in with judgment-free awareness. So this is not this is not an invitation to beat yourself up, but just to check in, like, where do I fall here, and like, what do I notice about myself? So do I believe that my abilities can improve with effort over time? Okay, if so, how much? Right? Do I tend to avoid or embrace challenges? And then, because it's not always just yes or no, black or white, are there some areas of your life that seem easier or harder to have a fixed or growth mindset? So maybe you notice, oh, well, I have these beliefs around this, but over in this area, it might show up a little bit differently. So I want you guys to check in on that. Maybe make some notes if you have some paper there, just to kind of jot your thoughts. And now we're going to go into the breakout, and you're going to have, I think, 9 minutes to be able to connect with your partners, share your experience, and see what shows up.
Hello, everyone. We're back. And just to remind you, this is Donna, and we can put our comments in the chat. And as we do, I hope that's okay, Rebecca. At appropriate times, I'll try to enter.
Yes, no, that's great. And I just stopped sharing my screen for a second, because I wanted to be able to see you guys for this part. So would anybody like to share, what did you learn about yourself, or what did you learn in this experience?
So go ahead and unmute when you're ready to share, or put your hand up, or both. Okay, you go slow. I'll either call on you or I'll talk first.
Well, I don't want to put anybody necessarily on the spot, but we could always do show of hands. So, when thinking about this, was anyone surprised to realize that you might have more of a growth mindset in certain areas around certain things, and maybe more of a fixed mindset around other things? Did anybody notice that? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Does anybody want to share anything about that? Maybe, Lisa, you're thinking about it? No? No.
I can give a summary. Oh, go
Sure.
ahead, Marie.
Yeah, I personally feel love is flexible. If you have so much love, you can overcome challenges by embracing and forgiving and starting again and again and whatever is needed. So to be flexible, it means you really need to love yourself and love the people around you and accept them and go beyond the challenges and the conflict that you have with them.
Yeah.
So a loving relationship can really overcome all the difficulties, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marie. And you really highlighted some really beautiful points from the growth mindset model that we talked about already in that first segment, right? So you noted, there's that compassion for self and for others, that sense of, we may not always get it right, whatever that is, and that sometimes can also be subjective, right? So having some grace, some compassion, empathy for the journey that each of us is on, and then also being willing to try again, right? And maybe when something doesn't work out right, or somebody maybe doesn't act the way that you wish that they had, um, that's not the end, right? That's actually an opportunity for something next, or something new, or something different. And so that's where the growth mindset would come in, to be like, okay, well, then what else can I choose here? How else can I approach this? How else can we come together? As opposed to just, well, they're a jerk, forget it, I hate them, and move on, right? Okay, does anybody else want to share anything else before we move on? Yes, Lisa. And you are on mute.
Okay, me? Yeah. Okay. So this is like I was thinking, I think that myself personally, I feel like I'm a very growth mindset person, especially lately, let's say like last 3-4 years, when I don't have to work full time. That helped a lot. But but one thing I was like came to my mind is like how you present yourself, like I'm talking about like makeup and clothing and like this, and that's not my. I have decided looks like because when I read those things, what it says that, oh, I can never do it. No, this is not gonna work. This feels so bad. I can't wear this. Like all these things, but then I look back again. I realized when my oldest son got married, and I I got this a friend, and she took me everywhere. We got the fake nails and the whole lashes, eyelashes. Oh my gosh, it was, and the clothing too. And I looked pretty good, but I was like, I felt so kind of like I my nails felt like in a jail, and 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 every time I laugh or something, and I'm kind of fast person, so I felt, because California very hot over, so every time I went outside and did something, then everything was coming down on my face. It was it was really difficult, I had to say. And I kind of, after that, I was like, oh, thank God it's over. 2 more boys and then it's over. Anyway, so I don't know, but it just came to my
Yes,
mind. How do you kind of
I
like overcome that? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And actually, Myrna and I were speaking a little bit together while you all were in your breakout. And I love that you brought it up, because it relates to what we were talking about. So growth mindset and possibility is really, from my perspective, ultimately about agency and choice, right? So it means that you're open and willing to the possibility of fake nails and doing your hair and feeling silly, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to choose to go on that journey, right? So it's giving yourself the freedom and the flexibility to entertain different ideas, options, ways to go forward. But you don't have to necessarily choose that if that is not where you are on your path and on your journey. Does that make sense? So it's more of how we think about things,
Yeah,
as what we then ultimately decide to choose.
yeah. But then we have this I have in my family this man called husband, and
Yeah.
he gives me a little pressure here. So it's kind of really hard sometimes, like anyway, like I'm not our relationship is good, but I can see that if I do something different, he's like, wow, that looks so good. And I mean, he goes over the board telling me how good is it. And then I'm not doing it so much because I'm personally, I don't really, everything itches and the clothes are like too, anyway, you know what I mean? Like so
Yes,
I'm like,
I totally
ah.
get it.
Yeah.
I
So I
totally-
cannot have 100%. It's a kind of relational thing too, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and again, I think that's actually a topic for another workshop, because, I think what we're talking about here is more what your internal experience and the languaging and the permission space and everything that you're giving with yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that you have to then do what everybody else wants from you, right? So that, I think, is two different things. But thank you for sharing, and I totally relate. I'm going to share my screen. What I will say is that, I love getting a pedicure. It gives me such joy, but I will also say that if I put something on my fingernails, I feel absolutely claustrophobic. So I hear you. Okay, so I just want to go a little bit now deeper about what a growth mindset is and isn't, okay? Because there is this thing also called false growth mindset, where even though growth mindset seems a little bit simple, I think, it also has been misconstrued sometimes in different ways. And so I just want to really highlight again and fine tune our understanding. So as we said, right, growth mindset is dedication to growing talent and skill, right? So what we have, and then seeing how can we expand that through the learning process, right? We value the process, which includes effort, right? But on the other side, we're not just valuing effort for the sake of effort, right? So if someone is doing something over and over and over again, working really, really hard, but not having any outcome or any learning that's occurring, right? Well, now we have the Einstein definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, okay? And that's not what we're talking about, because not only are we saying that there needs to be effort, but we're also recognizing that at some point there may be more than effort. And so we need to also have the flexibility to shift gears and to open up our perspective and look and scan our environment for what other options and strategies are available. So it's not just about being open-minded and flexible, right? It is also being open-minded and flexible, but then valuing the growth that's possible through learning and development. Praise, okay? So growth mindset can include definitely praising people for their effort, for, the perseverance, for their willingness to adapt. But sometimes it can also just be about acknowledging, because sometimes when you're on your journey or at some point of the process, just acknowledgement is important, even if, like, maybe it's not right. We don't want to be like, oh my gosh, you got up this morning, that's so amazing, right? Because there wasn't actually any effort there, right? So if you're praising effort or process that's actually not really happening, that's not going to be a value either. Okay, so knowing that we are definitely reinforcing and encouraging positive attributes where we're displaying a growth mindset as ourselves or as we're witnessing it in others, but also like saving the praise for effort if they haven't really done it. Like, oh my gosh, look, you did such a good job. And actually they did nothing, right? Because now you're devaluing that praise. Growth mindset is about balancing that perseverance with the ability to shift gears, like we said before. And then, you don't want to just say, oh, you can do anything. Like, just saying that is not demonstrating a growth mindset. Demonstrating a growth mindset is, well, what is it that you actually want to do? And what resources are available to help create that outcome, right? How can we pull resources internally that you have, and also what can we add to help support and scaffold that experience? So it is about gaining skills and finding those resources that aid your progress. But it's also not never being enough. So this is a big point that I wanted to make about continuous learning, especially in a group of women, okay? Continuous learning is not to fill a void. We're not trying to get to a place where our cup is full. We're instead just continuously adding to our blossom, to the bloom, adding new petals, adding. Some of it will fall away through time, but we're, constantly coming forward. Someone sent me a GIF of a time lapse flower opening, and it just kept opening and opening and opening. And I think of that image sometimes when I'm reminding myself of what this is about. And that sort of represents to me a growth mindset, as opposed to, I need to keep growing and learning and improving because what I am isn't enough. That would actually be on the fixed side. Okay, let's see. Oops. Where's my, okay. All right, so let's notice the signs, okay? So when we notice that we or someone else is overemphasizing talent, that innate, inherent, just what they're born with, that's a red flag, okay? When there's fear of change, okay, a high degree of perfectionism, it's got to all look a certain way, it's all got to be, just so. When there's fear of failure, right? When we feel fear of failure, then we're so much less likely to dig into something or take risks for greater, because we're uncertain about the outcome. Comparison, the thief of joy, right? If you see a lot of like trying to see, how do I stack up, or, is it good enough? Lots of times when you see the judgment come in, there's usually a lot of judgment that shows up within the fixed mindset. If you're always looking for external validation, but at the same time, taking everything personally, so not wanting feedback, not wanting input, not being willing to hear, what else, you might want to add in your experience. The need for instant gratification, right? Like saying, I want to play tennis, and going out, hitting 1 or 2 tennis balls, being like, oh, I can't do that because you didn't have the instant gratification of playing a perfect match, and then saying, forget it, I'm not good at tennis, I have no interest, I'm not going to play, right? Myrna had asked in the breakout about limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs absolutely are going to be linked together with a fixed mindset, right? And of course, we have lifelong beliefs from conditioning that have been reinforced over time. So the awareness piece here is super key, as is the judgment-free part. So just starting to increase your awareness around what's showing up, and then trying to flip the switch to the green lights, where we're leaning into challenge, right? We're allowing uncertainty to be, and focusing on what we have here in front of us today, and what our choices and options are for moving forward in the here and now. I wrote Be a Buffalo. I love this. What I learned about buffalo is that if you have a storm coming and you have cows, the cows will lie down and they'll wait for the storm to come. They'll endure the storm, and then they'll wait for it to hopefully pass quickly. Now, buffalo, they do something very differently. They recognize that there's a storm, and then they actually run into the storm, because then the time that they actually experience the storm is going to be less. And so I love that image, and we use it in our household all the time, Be a Buffalo. So I'm inviting you to use that example of how you can lean into and even celebrate challenge, instead of being afraid of it or trying to avoid it. Encouraging and embracing feedback, looking to see what other inputs can actually be a contribution instead of a criticism, right? Having gratitude for other information coming your way to contribute to what it is that you are engaged in on your journey. Recognizing, of course, that effort and perseverance are part of the path to mastery. Learning, right? They say there are no mistakes except for the experience from which we haven't learned. Celebrating our wins, super important, right? We're not always just looking at the next thing, but really allow yourself some time and some space to acknowledge, right? Have the gratitude and also to celebrate for what has gone well or what you've learned, even if it didn't go the way you had expected. And then lastly, positive self-talk, possibility language. And that's a really big one. And so I
Rebecca.
want, oh, yep.
Sorry. We have 3 comments.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Please.
Marie Bond says, being flexible means being humble and ask for advice.
Mm,
Shauna Kemp says it's a good differentiation for her perspective with praise about, and can you do anything? It's good to remember with my kids, she says.
yeah.
And Myrna loved the example to be a buffalo.
Yes, thank you. I love that too. I hope you guys can use that moving forward. And yeah, I mean, with the praise, we always, we want to positively reinforce those behaviors, especially when, when we can acknowledge that something has been difficult and challenging, right? Let them know, hey, great job, right? We can do hard things. But if we're praising and in their mind, they're like, well, that wasn't really hard, then they're not really going to trust us next or really take it to heart next time if we're offering that praise. And then also, of course, if we're praising and they're just putting forth effort, but getting more and more frustrated, that's probably not helping either, right? We need to step back and find how we can support and create different inputs. And yeah, the feedback piece, right? The more we can be open and flexible, the more we can contribute to one another, which is, from my perspective, isn't that why we're here, right? So thank you for those comments. And certainly if there's anything else, feel free to continue putting those into the chat. So, so this positive self-talk, right? Because when we leave here today, how like you may have learned some interesting things about growth mindset, but how can you use it? How can this be applicable and practical for you moving forward? And I think the positive language piece is really a great place to start, right? We can have affirmations where we are reaffirming where we are headed, continuing to encourage ourselves. I mean, my kids always laugh at myself at me because I'll be going room to room doing things and they'll hear me say, good job, Rebecca. Great job. But I'm celebrating those wins, right? Because that gives motivation. It helps with optimism, resilience, all the benefits that actually we'll note later. So, okay, I'm on a learning journey. Even just recognizing that every day when you get out of bed, I am on a learning journey. What a different tone that sets for your day and how you can show up than waking up and already being behind or feeling at a deficit. The power of yet. Yet in any sentence can make something fixed into something that has opportunity for change, for growth, for something new, right? I can't, that's a full stop. I can't yet, or I haven't mastered that yet, still allows space for our journey to help us evolve, right? I can learn this. I can give this my best. We don't know what's going to show up, but I know that I can at least give this my best. Just because this is challenging, it doesn't mean that it's impossible, right? I am possible. I love that little play with the word when you pull impossible apart. So yeah, just because it's hard or challenging, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. Mistakes, they help me learn, right? Like I said before, the only mistake is not learning from an experience, right? So what if you never make mistakes? You just have experiences in which you learn something new that you can then take the learning from and apply to the next thing. Feedback helps me get better. That's so different than, oh my gosh, I hope that I don't get feedback on this because it'll mean that I didn't do a good enough job, or I'm somehow insufficient, or they don't like me, or I'm bad at this, right? If they can, I wonder what I can do, right? Instead of comparing and being like, oh my gosh, that person did this so well, and then thinking, well, I can't do it like that, or I'm not like that, or I, XYZ. Instead, say, wow, let me be inspired by that other person. Look at what they've accomplished. So what could I accomplish? Maybe it isn't even exactly what they've done, but like, what does that inspire me to lean into that is on my path, that's on my journey, where I could go above and beyond in some way. And then, of course, if this doesn't work, I can try something else, right? I wonder what else is possible here that I have not yet considered, right? Opening the door to your next step instead of limiting yourself to the circumstances that you're currently in. Okay, so this puts us to our next shared experience. And so now, using this idea of actually applying some of the more positive languaging and the concept of reframing, I want you to think about a challenge that you recently faced, right? And think about sort of the story that you've told yourself about it, or maybe you can sort of hear yourself how you shared that experience with someone else and told them about it. Can you, if you think about it now, you sort of listen to the words that you use, can you identify any beliefs or thoughts that were related to that challenge that you may have been viewing or describing from a fixed mindset? And so then we're going to flip it, and then using a growth mindset and positive languaging that we've just looked at, can you reframe your experience to actually acknowledge and reflect the growth and learning from that experience? So instead of, oh my gosh, I had such a terrible day, this is what happened, it might be something like, oh my gosh, this is what happened the other day, and what I'm learning from that is, right? That would be one example of how you could go through that. All right, so we're going to go into our breakouts and see what you can come up with and share with your partners. Okay, so how did that go? Is it like to take something and now try to look at it through this other lens and sort of reframe it using new language, using the new perspective? Did anybody notice anything that they want to share?
We do have a comment from Shauna before. She appreciated the I can't yet.
Yeah, that is so powerful, especially with kids, especially, I mean, for all of us, but the sooner, obviously, that we can start practicing this type of languaging and this type of thinking, the more natural it becomes. Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, so I have an example of, this is not really my experience, but with kids. I'm a teacher. I teach extra math for little kids like 9 and 10 years old. And then I have many girls in my class. And then suddenly I got this event that the girls kind of putting in, Miss Lisa, I don't understand this. Oh, me too. I don't get it. I don't get it. This all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this. And then it like spread like a fire. And suddenly the boys don't understand and nobody. And I'm like, this is not good. And then I asked my main teacher, like a principal, what to do. And she said that I had to kind of ask them what part they don't understand. And I tried that, but the kids talk so long, it took so much time. That was not good. But then I remembered this one somewhere past, because I've been a long time teacher, that used the word yet. Somebody I think has said this. So I told them, all my classes, that you can say that I don't get it, but you have to always almost like shout the yet there. And it changed the whole atmosphere in my class. And they still say it, but I think they feel more, especially the one girl who always was, I don't get it. As now she's not so, she's kind of getting it, I think now. So
You
it's a
know,
good word.
yes, and you know what's really cool is, so we, you know, our brain does this thing where it wants to have coherence and it wants to have all the loops closed, right? So when we have cognitive dissonance, it's where, you know, we're constantly cycling, kind of running background programs trying to fill in gaps, right? So we do that with everything. So we're always constantly trying to close loops, close loops, close loops. What's really cool with the yet piece, right, is, and I love this example, thank you, Lisa, because if one kid is saying, well, I don't know this, I can't understand it, I don't know it, and then it creates that tidal wave, it's like they're all closing the loop to feel better by saying, I can't. Okay, I can't. Well, now it's done. Now I feel better because like it's done. With the yet, what you're doing is you're kind of giving the brain a little period, but at the same time, you're also creating that pull towards the yet, which now gets the brain, instead of looking for evidence and proof of the I can't, it is now constantly looking for evidence and proof of what is going to constitute the yet portion, right? So you're actually completely refocusing the power of your brain and the information that it's looking for and seeking. Does that make sense? So awesome. Okay, great. Well, then let's go to the last segment. I'm going to go here. So why do we even care about growth mindset? Well, for me, it's about optimizing our experience, right? I mean, if we're going to live this life, why not live it in a way that is fulfilling, that is enjoyable, that, you know, leads to positive relationships with others and, you know, experiences that we enjoy, right? From like more a business perspective or from like how we show up in life, you know, resilience is a huge piece too, right? And so a growth mindset really helps us towards cultivating that resilience. When I was growing up, we had little toys called Weebles. So I don't know if you know Weebles, and I can't see you right now, but Weebles were like little, almost like egg-shaped plastic people. And, you know, their whole slogan was Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And so I'm constantly reminding myself to be both a buffalo and a Weeble because I may wobble, but I'm not going to fall down because I'm constantly cultivating resilience. And the growth mindset is part of how I'm doing that. And when we are doing that, we're not only more able to keep going and to keep getting up, but we're also more motivated, right? Like when we were just talking about that example that Lisa brought up, right? If we're moving towards the yet, you have that pull, that motivation forward instead of feeling stuck and immobile here. So it increases optimism, positivity, hope, possibility, even bravery. Okay. It also helps reduce fear of the unknown. It doesn't reduce the unknown itself or uncertainty, but what it does is we start to cultivate a greater sense of trust. I don't know what's coming, and I'm cultivating greater trust that whatever shows up, I'm going to be able to handle it and it's going to be okay, right? It may not always look the way I want. It may not always be easy, and I trust that I can handle it. We can have increased enthusiasm, right? Because now, right, if there's a challenge, instead of, oh my gosh, I don't want to get out of bed today, right? It's awesome. Okay, what adventure are we going to have? What am I going to learn? What's, you know, how's this going to show up? I'm excited. I'm interested. I have more joie de vivre, right? Also great for improving relationships, not just with ourselves, which of course is the one that we really want to nurture first. But when this cup is full, what spills out, right? What do we share and what do we engage in with others? And so if I am constantly comparing myself to you and I feel threatened by you, how is that going to affect our relationship? If I feel like anytime you offer feedback or have input or ask a question or share something, and I internalize that as criticism, how is that going to affect the quality of our relationship? If I feel that your success directly limits my ability to be successful, again, how's that going to affect our relationship? So when we are engaging in this practice, right, we're increasing fulfillment, but we're also proactively contributing to our success. I've used the word agency a lot. We've used the word empowerment, right? It's all about choice and how we are engaging on what is showing up now, but also what shows up next. All right, so in moving forward, right, we could talk about SMART goals and how to achieve a task or how to achieve a goal. But let's put it through the lens of the growth perspective, and let's look at it in terms of when we're looking at outcomes through the value of growth, not just the destination and the achievement of the thing, okay? So if we're looking from a growth perspective, we're actually looking for growth opportunities. And these are the places that make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. Why? Because they are outside of our normal comfort zone, right? It's those areas where the air gets thin and we want to maybe go down to where we're a little bit more comfortable. We feel a little bit more capable, right? But if we can find those opportunities right there on the edge, and we can learn and we can grow and we can expand through them, then what happens is that comfort zone, that band at the outer edge, it starts to stretch. So that now, if our growth opportunities had been here, now our growth opportunities live up here, and we're constantly in this journey of ever expanding. So, think about some places um, where you've had to step out of your comfort zone, and are there goals that you have right now? Maybe you're not moving forward as quickly as you like, or feel stuck. Why is that? Usually it's because there's a huge opportunity for growth there. And we're in that conflict zone of, do I grow for my dream or do I stay safe because it's what I know? So second, seeking feedback. Oh, I forgot to highlight it there, but feedback, so important. We're looking for our growth opportunities, and then we're also willing to receive feedback. What do you think about this? Hey, I've got this idea. I'm looking for some other perspectives. I did this talk, right? We'll get to that later, right? I did this talk. What was useful? What wasn't? Why? So that next time I can do more of what was useful and less of what wasn't. I don't take that personally. I take it as an opportunity for growth. I take it as an opportunity to be of greater contribution. And then thirdly, when we're approaching goal achievement from this sense of growth, we're also really recognizing the importance of practicing. All right. So lots of times I use the word experimenting. So like when we're trying out new things, or, we're going through different phases of our goal achievement, I might do experiments, right? We do an experiment to see, does it work? If it works, great, let's build on it. If it doesn't, okay, let's throw it away. Let's try something else and see what we can build on. So growing stronger with practice, almost thinking of this as like a muscle, right? Or the brain as a muscle. So the more we work out with practicing this growth mindset, the stronger that it gets, the more that it can do for and with us. So, maybe even just checking in with yourself, like, where have you already experienced evidence of your ability to improve with practice, right? And can you then maybe call on those bits of evidence as you move forward and maybe are trying something that's even a little bit more challenging, but you have evidence that you can do it and the value of that practice over time. And so which areas of your life could benefit from more intentional practice? Like maybe maybe a little bit more could contribute exponentially. Maybe just something to check in about. So when it's all said and done, right? Why is it important? We saw the benefits, right? We know it's more fulfilling, right? But the way that I see it is that when we come from this growth mindset perspective, it has to do with shifting away from self-worth being derived simply from performance, right? Simply from flipping that switch. I'm either successful or I'm a failure, right? But instead, by celebrating development, right? Celebrating that journey, that process that we're in, we now get to rejoice in what we're becoming, who we've become and what we're becoming, right? So instead of focusing on how far we have to go, focusing on how far we've already come and how much more potential we get to lean into. And that means that we're looking at our life and the growth opportunity from the perspective of self-actualization and expansion instead of from a place of limitation or from trying to fix some sort of deficit or feeling like maybe we're not enough, right? And that creates that pull forward that we talked about before, as opposed to feeling like we're stuck or being held back. So we have one more little exercise for you guys. And this one incorporates practicing the feedback piece, which I know can sometimes be scary, but that's why we're going to do it together, because this is.
Could I mention before we move on that we are running over time and we believe that's okay. If you need to go, we're sorry, but we hope you want to stay with us because this is an excellent content. And we had a few comments in the chat over yet brings up the opportunity for possibility, and is also a powerful word, and that when asking a 10-year-old for feedback, be prepared for it and show your appreciation is what Shauna said. She asked yesterday her 10-year-old for some feedback and she appreciated it. Those comments were from Shauna, and she said she can't join this breakout. And then Marie Bond emphasized that negativity is contagious as well as positivity. That what happens in a class is what happens in life also.
Yes, absolutely. Would we like to do this as, would we like to do it as a group? Would that be better? Instead of going into the breakouts? I apologize, I had my timer set incorrectly.
So can you just show by raise of hands, is everybody okay if we, okay, Monica needs to go. Yeah, I think breakout is still better because it gives everyone a chance. We'll just have it be short, maybe 6 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do here is you're going to just identify a growth opportunity that you recognize that is that you're facing right now, either personally or professionally. And so now we're gonna share some actions that you can take if you're coming from a growth mindset. Now, you're also going to then allow another member in your group, maybe we don't have time for everybody, but at least one person to share a piece of feedback. And to be very clear, this is not to evaluate the quality of what was shared or to, to necessarily give advice. The point here is to offer another possibility that can contribute to the path that the original speaker has shared that they are on. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so let's dive into that and then we can wrap up when you do. Okay, so you shared and received feedback. Everybody is still smiling and still here. That's a good sign. Awesome. Okay, well, does anyone want to share what that experience was like, or if there's anything that you are taking away from that experience as you move forward? Safe space, no need to be shy. What was it like receiving some feedback? What was that like? Anybody want to share what that was like? Was it scary? Was it exhilarating? Was it fun? Was it strange? Did it feel awkward?
I was reminded that feedback, this is Donna. I was reminded that feedback can be negative or positive, and a lot of times people give negative feedback. But I was reminded that what life has been teaching me is encouraging words or finding a way not to give empty praise. But I notice your behavior. I noticed that you saw me picking up the little family room, and now you're doing it. That's so inspiring to me. That
Mhm.
the feedback can be very encouraging to other people.
Yeah. I feel like the word feedback in and of itself has so much baggage. Like, I think we need a different word. That's why I often will use input and feedback to sort of give an alternative word there. Input to me has less baggage. Feedback is like, somebody telling you like what's wrong with you, right? Or at least that's been how I've internalized it over time, right? So this has been an interesting one for me as well. I have a saying that I like to use: eat the fish, spit out the bones. Okay. So there's always going to be all this information that comes in all around you, whether you're trying to keep it out or not, it's always coming, right? And so I guess with the growth mindset piece, we're looking at how can we allow this information to come through and pass through and sort of take the pieces that fit, that can contribute, that can add value, that can maybe make us question, huh, maybe I could look at that, and maybe it is on self-reflection. Oh, well, actually, how do I feel about the way that I responded or reacted in that situation? Or, oh, what did I say? What could I have said differently? Again, with judgment-free awareness, where we're having that awareness, but without the then reproach and the self-berating, right? That's the evolution part that we're practicing, right? But how can we open ourselves up for information and see it just as information, but spit out what's not going to work? Because it's not all going to be useful. It's not all going to be valuable. It's not all going to be relevant. It's not all going to be kind, right? But we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, well, then I don't want to hear anything, right? So awesome. Well, congratulations for doing that and for experiencing it. And I wonder how you can start incorporating, allowing for more input and feedback moving forward in safe ways as you start that practice. So basically, we've come to the end. Usually at the end, I will ask, what have you learned about yourself today? What do you think you'll be carrying forward as you move into the rest of your life with these new tools, ideas, and strategies? And then, is there anything that you can see yourself sharing with someone else who was not here today, so you can ripple it out into the world? So those are my closing questions. You can reflect on them yourself. If there's anybody that would like to share anything in response to those questions, now would be that opportunity.
Maybe we can ask them to write it in the chat because we're running. So if you have a response, you can put it in the chat.
Okay. And then my last slide, I didn't put the slides back up because I want to see you guys. My last slide basically is just, I'd love to know what you thought, right? I'm walking the talk. So I have a link which I will give to Myrna, and she will send it out in the email. And it's basically just a feedback form. And so I'm asking if there's anything that you particularly enjoyed or didn't enjoy, would have liked to have seen more or less of, what resonated, what are you taking away, that kind of thing. So if you are drawn to complete that feedback form, I would be grateful. And then if this is something that you would like to discuss further or would like to get in touch with me, you'll also get the link to my website. It's just RebeccaBoswell.com/connect, and that's where you can fill out a meeting request form if you want to just chat about this or anything else. Okay. Awesome. So was there anything else before we close? All right. Then if not, from my perspective, I thank you guys so much for your time. I hope this was of value. And I obviously like to work in images and metaphors. So hopefully you'll have a few of those that you can take with you that will help you on your journey forward.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I just want to share our next month's slide, if that's okay. And we're gonna have Claire Doherty. She's going to speak about how to call on angels to heal ourselves and others. And she works giving workshops and things, and how to discover to mobilize our own circle of angels. Yeah, so that's it. I'll turn it back over to Donna for any closing words.
Well, there's some more comments in the chat. Maybe most of you saw them, I hope. But thank you very much, Rebecca Boswell. Your wisdom, your valued experience as well, attesting the knowledge you've gained over your lifetime. It felt deeply shared to me today. And I think my breakout was so successful. I feel like we walked away with all those points that we learned about, that we're carrying forward and that we're sharing with others, and that we will continue to remind ourselves. And I'm hoping that we also can stay in touch with you, that we can build a connection to you for growth mindsets, for our organizations, and for our life fulfillment contributions. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. So I will send out Rebecca the link to the recording, as well as Rebecca's contact information and the feedback form. And we hope to see you next week. I mean, next month, not next
month. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you,
Bye-bye.
Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes.
Thank you, Rebecca.